Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name's Charlotte Albert. I'm an account director here at Mobility Ways, and I'm going to be your host for this final session of today, or final section rather, which is behaviour change. Before we get into our first fantastic speaker, Livvy, just wanted to remind you to utilise Slido, which we've been running through today, but if you're new, we'll be flashing up the QR code there. Fantastic. We're also giving away not only Mike Berners-Lee's fantastic book, but a book called The Method of Kindness by one of our speakers this afternoon, Sharu Izadi. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing from her. So yeah, please keep your questions coming. So yes, behaviour change, a key facet of sustainable commuting. And we've got some really inspiring and thought-provoking speakers for today's behaviour change session, from looking at the core principles of behaviour change and applying it to car sharing specifically. We'll be hearing from Livvy shortly, from frameworks and toolkits developed by a psychologist, to sort of going back to sort of the basics around context and engagement and behaviour change. So covering lots of bases today. We've got 4 speakers in this section this afternoon who will all be coming back after they've spoken for a panel, which is your opportunity to ask lots of questions. So do keep them coming. Hi, Livvy. Good to see you back today from last year. Welcome. So Livvy, I'll just introduce you quickly. So Sustainability and Behaviour Change Consultant Livvy Drake returns by popular demand. Livvy will take just 10 minutes to share insights on the core principles of behaviour change and how they apply to low carbon travel choices, with examples from a Liftsharing trial. So Livvy, great to have you here, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. So I'm going to cover off today some examples of a Liftsharing campaign that I worked on, a research project for Birmingham County Football Association, BCFA from now on. And they're actually they work with Liftsharing, so Mobility Ways Liftsharing app, and we were looking at how could we engage people within the grassroots grassroots football community with Liftsharing. And you may think, oh, well, what's that got to do with my work, or especially if you're looking at commuting? Well, you will find out now, because the way we applied the principles to this research project and our learnings are very similar to those challenges that you may face with commuting. So I'm going to put my hand up for the next slide and won't be saying next slide anymore. So what is this behaviour change all about? Well, the aim of behaviour change is about overcoming the barriers and increasing the motivation. So what this means is that we need to understand what those barriers are, first of all, and understand what motivates those target audiences that we're trying to engage. And the piece of work that I was doing for BCFA for their Save Today, Play Tomorrow programme was trying to understand why people chose to drive to their football training, what could work to address it. And we worked with some specific clubs to pilot some different initiatives and make recommendations for wider initiatives across the network. And the approach that we took was the approach that I use for all of my behaviour change work, which is, first of all, understanding the different audiences. And we can't assume everybody's the same, or that everyone's motivations and barriers are different. So we need to segment down. And this means on this project, we divided out parents from adults who went to football, and we focused then mainly on the parents. We also got really specific on the behaviour. So we differentiated between away games and home training, again, because there was differences in the behaviour. People were more likely to already lift share for away games because people were travelling further. And we also even differentiated between home games and away games, again, because we learnt from the research there was different drivers to people's choices. Then we need to think about what are those causes for the behaviour. And when we develop an initiative, we need to then be prepared to trial it and learn and iterate from those insights. So what did we learn from our research with BCFA? Well, first of all, we learned about why people chose to drive. And guess what? Convenience was the major piece because it was much easier than other transport modes. Time was a big factor for parents because getting children fed and changed and to training, football training after school was very tight and rushed. There was also the practicality of carrying a kit, which was often cited as a reason. And children's safety was also acknowledged as why people chose to drive. When we talked to parents about lift sharing, people were concerned about other people's lateness or their own, and they didn't want to let people down. They were also felt they might be deemed to be unsupportive towards their children if they weren't there at pitch side. And this was during the pandemic. So many people felt that they didn't know other parents, and so they didn't feel comfortable getting lifts with them or letting their children go in the same cars. So if you're thinking about the barriers maybe in your workplace, think about where these things might apply also. And when we talked about, this is actually the lifts, why people lift share. So actually the people who did lift share, not the barriers, we found that people who did already lift share, it was because they lived close by within a mile or two. They would travel together with their children. So there was two sets of parents and children in a car, and they were familiar and they knew each other from events put on by coaches. So what does this mean? Well, we use these insights and these learnings to create an initiative. And the initiative focused on working with key messengers, which is a key behavioural principle. So our key messengers were those coaches, and they connected parents who lived close together. They started dedicated WhatsApp groups to communicate about travel arrangements. They organised social events so parents got to know each other, and they even offered the lifts to players and parents who lived close to them. So they were really trying to encourage parents to jump in the car as well as children to address all of these barriers that we'd outlined. Also, in terms of messaging, we worked with one of the football teams, and we gave them messaging for them to share. And so we gave them positive message framing, which talked about people they knew, people within the club sharing lifts. So we had case studies to help normalize it. And so our takeaways from this, which can be applied to your own commuting challenges, which I'll get to in a minute. So the output from the project were these guidance documents, and these are now available as part of the Save Today, Play Tomorrow resources that they have on their website. So this is guidance for clubs within BCFA to use so they can encourage their parents to lift share. And it's using all of those things that we shared already. We've got examples of fuel cost savings. So we talked about how much families saved money. We talked about the morale boost, reducing the environmental impacts, and making training venues safer. So we played into some of those the values and the concerns that we'd heard from the research. And we made these resources so that it's really easy for the clubs to do it. We've given them the messaging, we've given them the tools, we've given them the examples. So we're trying to reduce the friction for them to adopt this themselves. So our key learnings and the takeaways for a low carbon campaign, which you can apply to yours, are understand the barriers to changing travel behaviours. So that's why people aren't doing those cycling, lift sharing, low carbon choices. Understand the motivators for existing choices. So why are people jumping in the car? Make it easy for them to make that switch, and use those trusted messengers to communicate. So who is it that they really listen to? And share case studies and examples and model the desirable behaviour from other people. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Livvy. Really good to see. And yeah, day to day, I'm supporting our clients to implement Liftshare. So it's good to sort of go back to the basics in some way and see the mechanics behind it. So thanks so much, Livvy. We'll